I fell down the stairs, I repeated mechanically as the ER nurse examined the angry red marks on my arms. That's what Mom told me to say if anyone asked. The same excuse we've been using for years. My name is Emma, and at 19, I found myself sitting in the emergency room at 3 a.m., soaked to the bone, with second-degree burns hidden under my wet sweater. The events that led me here started just an hour ago, though really, they've been building for years. Sweetie, the nurse said gently, her name tag reading Sarah. I've seen a lot of stair accidents in my 15 years here. These aren't those kinds of marks. She gestured to the distinctive pattern on my skin. These look like... Please, I whispered, cutting her off. Please don't. The truth was, I hadn't fallen down any stairs. I'd been making dinner, trying to be quiet, trying to be perfect, trying not to attract attention. But the pot of boiling water had slipped, splashing my arms. I'd screamed. That was my mistake. Mom had been drinking again. Dad was in one of his moods. My scream set them both off. Ungrateful brat. Mom had screamed, grabbing my burned arm. Can't even cook without making a scene. Dad had stormed in, his face that dangerous shade of red I'd learned to fear. Get out, he'd roared. If you can't appreciate what we do for you, get out. I tried to explain, tried to apologize, but they'd pushed me toward the door. Outside, the winter rain was falling in sheets. I wasn't even wearing shoes. Maybe a night outside will teach you some gratitude, Mom had sneered, slamming the door. I heard the lock click. I stood there, the rain soaking through my clothes, the burns on my arms screaming in pain. I had nowhere to go. No friends nearby. They'd made sure of that. No phone. They'd taken it away last week when I got a B+ in calculus. You don't deserve distractions, they'd said. After wandering for what felt like hours, a police car had spotted me. Officer Martinez took one look at my soaked clothes, bare feet, and the way I was cradling my arms, and drove me straight to the ER. Now, Nurse Sarah was looking at me with those knowing eyes, the kind that saw right through the rehearsed excuses and practiced lies. Emma, she said softly, using my name for the first time, these burns have a distinct pattern. They're consistent with boiling water burns, not falls. And there are older marks too, here and here. She pointed to faded scars I'd stopped noticing years ago. I stared at the floor, counting the tiles. 1, 2, 3. Maybe if I counted them all, this moment would pass. Maybe if I stayed quiet enough, everything would go back to normal. Normal wasn't good, but at least I understood it. Your parents did this, didn't they? Her voice was gentle but firm. I kept counting tiles. 4, 5, 6. They locked you out in the rain with untreated burns. 7, 8. The tiles blurred as tears filled my eyes. Emma, look at me. Nurse Sarah's voice was kind but insistent. I need to document these injuries. Officer Martinez is waiting outside. He needs to take your statement. They're my parents, I whispered, finally looking up. They don't mean to. They just get angry sometimes. And I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I'm not grateful enough. I'm not. Stop, Sarah interrupted, her eyes fierce. Nothing you could do would make you deserve this. Nothing. That's when I broke. Years of carefully constructed excuses, of protecting them, of believing I deserved it. It all came crashing down. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside, somewhere I'd locked away long ago. Sarah held me as I cried, careful to avoid the burns she'd just dressed. When I finally quieted, she spoke again. I'm going to tell you something important, Emma. What they did, what they've been doing, it's not just wrong. It's criminal. Those aren't accidents. Those aren't falls downstairs. Those are deliberate injuries inflicted by people who should have protected you. I started to shake my head, but she continued. And you're not going back there. Not tonight, not ever, unless you choose to. But first, we're going to document everything. Every mark, every scar, every accident. Then Officer Martinez is going to take your statement. And then we're going to make sure you're safe. For the first time that night, I felt something other than fear or pain. It was small, barely a flicker, but it was there. Hope. The next few hours passed in a blur of photographs, questions, and medical examinations. Officer Martinez documented every scar, every mark, while Nurse Sarah gently explained each injury to him in clinical terms that somehow made it all feel more real. Multiple contusions in various stages of healing, circular burns consistent with cigarette marks, defensive wounds on forearms. Each description was like a key unlocking memories I'd tried to forget. The time Mom had caught me talking to a boy at school. The night Dad lost at poker. The day I'd gotten an A instead of an A. As dawn broke, Detective Lisa Chen arrived. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor that somehow made me feel safer. "Emma," she said, sitting beside my hospital bed. "I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to understand something. What happened to you isn't your fault, and it isn't going to happen again." I wrapped the blanket tighter around myself. "They'll be worried about me," I whispered, not quite believing it even as I said it. Detective Chen shared a look with Officer Martinez. "Actually, Emma, they haven't reported you missing. In fact, when officers went to your house, your mother claimed you'd gone to stay with a friend. Your father said he hadn't seen you in days." Something cold settled in my stomach. Even after everything, their denial hurt. "We found your room," Detective Chen continued gently. "The locks on the outside of the door, the missing doorknob, she paused, checking her notes. "The gratitude list nailed to your wall." I flinched. The gratitude list, a daily reminder of everything I owed them. For food, for shelter, for allowing me to exist. "There's something else," Detective Chen said, pulling out her phone. "We found these in your father's desk." She showed me photos of documents. My birth certificate, my social security card, bank statements. "They've been accessing your account, Emma. The money you earned from your part-time job at the library, the scholarship money from your college fund, they've been transferring it to their account." I stared at the numbers, feeling numb. 3 years of shelving books, tutoring kids, saving every penny, all gone. "That's okay," I said automatically. "They needed it. For bills, and no." Nurse Sarah interrupted firmly. She hadn't left my side all night. "It's not okay. None of this is okay." Detective Chen nodded. "We're pressing charges: financial abuse, physical abuse, negligence, endangerment. But right now, we need to focus on keeping you safe." "Where will I go?" The question came out small, frightened. "We've contacted your aunt in Colorado," Detective Chen said. "Margaret Wilson. She's been trying to reach you for years." Aunt Maggie, Mom's sister. I barely remembered her. Just warm hugs and the smell of cinnamon. She'd stopped visiting when I was 12, after a huge fight with Mom. "She's on her way," Detective Chen continued. "Should be here by tonight. Until then, you'll stay under hospital observation. We've already filed an emergency restraining order against your parents." My parents. The words felt strange now, disconnected from the people who had raised me, or rather, the people who had hurt me. "They'll be angry," I whispered. "They'll be arrested," Detective Chen corrected. "We have enough evidence for multiple felony charges. They won't hurt you again." Nurse Sarah squeezed my hand. "Emma, do you remember what I said earlier? About this not being your fault?" I nodded. "Well, I want you to remember something else too. You're incredibly strong. You survived. And now, you get to live." Live. The word echoed in my mind. Not survive, not endure, live. As morning light filtered through the hospital windows, I felt something shift inside me. The fear was still there, but alongside it was something new. Something that felt like possibility. Detective Chen left to process paperwork, promising to return. Officer Martinez stood guard outside my door. And Nurse Sarah stayed, telling me stories about her own daughter, about normal family life, about a world where love didn't leave scars. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to imagine a different future. One where I didn't have to be perfect. One where mistakes didn't mean punishment. One where I could just be. Aunt Maggie was coming. Colorado was waiting. And somewhere, in a small corner of my heart, hope was growing stronger. 6 months later, I stood in front of my mirror in Aunt Maggie's Colorado home, barely recognizing myself. The dark circles under my eyes had faded, and I'd gained back the weight my parents' discipline had stolen. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was in my eyes. They didn't look haunted anymore. My parents' trial had ended last week. Detective Chen had kept her promise, building an airtight case with the hospital records, financial documents, and my testimony. I faced them in court, my voice shaking but strong, while Aunt Maggie held my hand. They'd been sentenced to 7 years each. The judge had been particularly harsh after seeing the photos of my gratitude list and hearing about the locked door, the burns, the years of systematic abuse. "What kind of parents," he'd said, his voice heavy with disgust, "lock their injured child out in freezing rain?" Mom had cried, claiming she'd done everything for my own good. Dad had stayed silent, not meeting my eyes. Neither had apologized. You did it, kiddo, Aunt Maggie said now, appearing in my doorway. She'd taken me in without hesitation, helping me enroll in the local community college, finding me a therapist, showing me what real family felt like. I got another letter from them today, I said quietly. From the prison. Aunt Maggie's face darkened. You don't have to read it. I know. I fingered the unopened envelope. But Dr. Torres says it's important for my healing to make my own choices about contact. And today I feel strong enough to read it. She nodded, understanding as always. Want me to stay? Please. We sat on my bed, my real bed, in my real room, with a door that locked from the inside, and I opened the letter. It was from Mom, her usually perfect handwriting shaky. Emma. The prison counselor says I need to understand what we did wrong, but you were always so difficult, so ungrateful. Everything we did was to make you better. Now you've ruined our lives. Your father can't look at me anymore. Our friends have abandoned us. This is all your fault. I stopped reading, a calm settling over me. 6 months ago, these words would have shattered me. Now they just made me sad. You okay? Aunt Maggie asked softly. Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. They still don't get it. They never will. But that's not my problem anymore. I stood up and walked to my desk, pulling out the acceptance letter I'd received yesterday. I got into the nursing program, I announced. Full scholarship. Aunt Maggie's face lit up. Emma, that's wonderful. Nurse Sarah wrote me a recommendation letter, I explained. She said sometimes the best healers are the ones who understand what it's like to need healing. Tears filled Aunt Maggie's eyes. Your parents were wrong about so many things, but especially about you. You're extraordinary. I hugged her, breathing in the familiar scent of cinnamon and home. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have, she said firmly, but I'm so glad you didn't have to. Later that night, I sat at my window, watching the Colorado sunset paint the mountains gold. My phone buzzed with a text from Nurse Sarah. She'd been checking in regularly since that night in the ER. Heard about nursing school. So proud of you. You're going to change lives. I smiled, thinking about that terrified girl counting floor tiles in the emergency room. She'd survived. She'd testified. She'd rebuilt herself, piece by piece, with help from people who showed her what real love looked like. The prison letter lay torn on my desk, but it didn't have power over me anymore. My parents had tried to break me, but they'd failed. Instead, they'd forced me to find my strength, my voice, my future. Tomorrow, I'd start studying for my nursing prerequisites. In a few years, I'd be the one helping scared kids in emergency rooms, showing them that survival was possible, that hope was real, that they deserved better. But tonight, I just sat in my room, my safe room, in my safe home, and watched the sun set on my old life while a new one waited on the horizon. I was Emma Wilson now, named after Aunt Maggie. I was a survivor, a future nurse, and finally free. And somewhere in a hospital emergency room, another scared teenager was counting floor tiles, waiting for someone to see their pain, to tell them it wasn't their fault, to show them the way out. Maybe someday that someone would be me.